And Crestone is one of the places where we feel a real emotion from the ETs. We do everywhere, but to me, Crestone, we feel more love and support coming from the ETs in Crestone than any other place, and especially at that contact site where you have received so much support from kindness and the other ET elders and the avatars when you've gone into that contact site.
Yeah, she's referring, there's a place up on Blanca Peak that we actually remote viewed the first time we ever went up there in 1997. And we were doing an exercise in the afternoon at our meeting place at a little lodge there in Crestone. And I was asking people, where should we be tonight? And everyone started remote viewing and getting certain coordinates and numbers on a map and started getting a name. And it turned out it was Zapata Falls. And there's a parking area up on Blanca Peak where you can walk to these beautiful little waterfalls called Zapata Falls. And so that we went there, and that's how we ended up there that first time. And it was all guided in consciousness. And there was a place that I had remote viewed up from where the parking area is that was off to the right as you're going up to the falls that would be where we would have contact. And the very first night we were there, it was an unbelievable electrical storm like you've almost never seen in your life. And so everyone had to get in their vehicles, and it lasted for an hour or two. I mean, it was this amazing storm. Lightning strikes everywhere. During the storms, while we were in the vehicles, you could actually see in some of the clearing in the clouds with the backlit with the lightning, disc-shaped and triangular-shaped craft flying in and out of the peak. And many people saw this. It was quite astonishing. After the storm, we got out, and the whole area was sort of scintillating. It's like if you know in the South you have fireflies or lightning bugs, as they're called. But there in Colorado there are no such things. But it was like finer than that. But it was every single person could see all this sparkling, scintillating celestial energy because we'd all been sitting, meditating, inviting them there. And so after a while, I went up to find this spot, Sherry Adamek, and I walked up the path. And then I came back and gathered everyone, and we went up there. And when we did, I walked into an area, and a brilliant light burst right above me, to the right and slightly above me. And I walked into this sort of column of light. And I then saw that I was in a sort of trans-dimensional space, and there were about a dozen elders or representatives from various extraterrestrial civilizations there, as well as celestial beings and a sort of representation of the Godhead. It was this whole celestial thing happening, but the ETs that were there were quite obvious. And as I walked forward, a lot of people, I had a big ski jacket on because it's cold up there. I mean, we were at 9,000 feet. Even in July or June, it's still cold at that elevation at night. And as I walked up into this area and greeted each of these beings, I was about to levitate, and I felt the energy rising around me to such an extent, the vibration and resonance, that I thought I was going to vanish, and I really had to hold on to staying in the linear space-time level of things. And other people saw me disappearing or fading out. I mean,
you were definitely, your edges were becoming indistinct, and it was like you were going to fade out. That's what I saw, and a number of people did see that same thing.
Yeah, and so I became so almost translucent where people could see through me or my edges vanished. And during all of this, what was really interesting is that the ETs were asking us to work in service for universal peace and to work on all of this together. And it was just a really sacred sort of event. A day or two later, I took out the compass that I have, and we actually have this photograph that's going to be in the next book. There's going to be a DVD with the next book that's going to show all these pictures of things that have happened, as well as craft and beings and everything. And it was a regular compass with, a magnetic needle in it. And when I took it out, it was north had been shifted about 120 to 160 degrees off of north. And in other words, it had been demagnetized so that the magnetic north part of the compass was altered. And it was over my heart chakra in the breast pocket of my coat the whole time during this amazing contact event up on Blanca Peak there outside of Crestone. And I came to realize that this was proof of what had happened, and it actually stayed that way for about a month.
It did, because the picture I took of it was in England a month later.
Right, and
then it went
it
back.
eventually went back to normal, quote-unquote normal, which means that the north part of the needle was facing north. But it actually had that kind of magnetic field alteration on this compass for that long.
Yeah.
That's how strong this event was. It's quite amazing. And it's very reminiscent of other things we've had where we had a craft fully materialize in a field in England in the 90s, 92, I believe it was, and at Alton Barnes near some crop circles. And the compass I was holding started turning counterclockwise just like the craft was, with the needle, instead of pointing north, started slowly shifting and eventually went 360 degrees all the way around the dial, but not spinning quickly, very slowly, just moving while this craft was around us. And, it's really interesting because there is a magnetic field flux disturbance when these craft or their energies are around. And this is why, actually, at the Lockheed Skunk Works and in the aerospace industry, the man-made anti-gravity devices that we've been building since the 50s that use all these new energy systems that we are hoping the world will benefit from soon to get us off of oil, among other things, are called flux liners. One of the terms that are used are magnetic flux liners, because they're actually moving along the magnetic flux field is part of where they're drawing their energy. And there is a big magnetic flux field disturbance when you're near them. And we used to have some magnetometers that measure the magnetic field of either the Earth, but also of like a lightning strike or even a man-made object. And those magnetometers, which eventually broke, and we haven't found a good source for replacing them yet. If anyone listening knows where you get a good portable battery-operated magnetometer, let me know. But they used to go off whenever we would have an ET being or a craft that was approaching or around us. And so now we use other kinds of detectors, radar detectors and laser detectors and other things. But it's interesting because this contact event was the beginning of this kind of long journey up on Blanca Peak and in Crestone that continues to this year. So it's very exciting. I hope some of you can join us there, if not this year, in future years.